not waiting to get your film developed. But on the other hand, you're right. Everybody, I don't know. Have you guys ever done this? Just taking pictures of chimping photographers? Like if I'm at a conference or something, I love getting like a little pack. And I'm one of them, of course, a lot of times. But all right, I'm gonna go off of this back. I'm gonna go off the back system here and see if we. All right, what kind of comments are we getting so far? Let me see here. See, Rob Moroto from Calgary Photos.
Yes.
And we've been talking already for a few minutes, and I haven't mentioned yet. I'm a photographer, an HDR guy. I'm with Photomatics. I've done a lot of different things, including real estate photography. Rob is a really serious real estate photography pro, specifically hailing from Canada, different places in Canada, apparently, where you can still move around. We started doing these. I just kind of wanted to do it just for fun, for my own sanity early in the quarantine time. And I got talking with the Photomatics team, and we put together, okay, Ron, go ahead, have fun, do your thing. I'll try to see if we can't help people learn something new. Quarantine is kind of starting to subside a bit, which is great. But we're just saying, okay, during this time, let's give people something to work on and learn. Everybody wants to come out of it better than before in one way or another. So for those that have time and are at home, maybe kids, not too young kids, like middle school and later, or people at home that have been wanting to try HDR, let's give them some tools. So there you go. You can go to the hdrsoft.com page. On the top is your kind of standard, what are we doing during COVID link. And you can just click that instead of this long one. And there's a lot of HDR helpful getting started information, including a free license for Photomatics Essentials. So you can try all this without any watermarking and trial. So take advantage of that. If you're not, if you're a real estate pro, you're probably already doing this, or, well, maybe you're a real estate pro that we very much know there are different ways of shooting. You can light it up, you can bracket, you can do a combination of the two. So wherever you fall in there, let us know. Okay, having said that, and we just started a Facebook group. There's the link. It's early. We only have a small amount so far. So I wanted to kind of promote that and see if that grows into something cool. You can help. If you join, you can help guide what kind of group it becomes. Okay, comments.
All right.
What do we got? We have, well, let's just start with this one. Audrey, all right. Can you edit a 360 picture and not lose the data that it is a 360 and also not lose quality? Yeah, wait, not lose quality, of course. It's just 360 photos are like other photos. I can show you actually a little bit. I'll grab something in the background. Not lose the data that it was I think I know what that means.
Like the metadata, right?
Yeah, there's some metadata in there. Yeah, it keeps it. In fact, there was some cameras that it didn't, or something that weren't supported for a while, because we got questions so what she's asking, I think, is that when you have a 360 photo and you want to share it on, say, Facebook, there has to be some information in there to say, hey, this is a 360, so it knows how to display it, and that's in the metadata. And yes, it as long as it's there, it'll still be there on the way out. If you have, make sure you have the latest version of Photomatics Pro. You'll need Photomatics Pro actually for 360s, because it has a tool to even out the sides.
Oh, really?
And, yeah, I'll show you. I'll pull something up when I get a second in the background. I'm going to plug in the drive actually. So make sure you have the latest version, and because it might have been like a newer camera that wasn't supported or something, but I believe they all are now. So thanks for the question, right in my wheelhouse. And when will you release an Apple Photos extension? Apple Photos doesn't really make it possible, because you can't, unless something's changed, which I really doubt, you can't export multiple photos so they can be combined. And that's what HDR is all about. So it's what you do with Apple Photos is just either you can export them using Apple Photos export, or just go show in Finder and then just combine them directly in Photomatics that way. And then of course any result you can pull back in and treat it like any other photo. This one might be for you, Rob. Gavin, was real estate photography always your passion? How did you get into it?
So passion. You know what? No, I don't think anybody really says, "Hey, I want to go shoot some condo where there's tenants living in it." I don't think that anyone says that's their passion.
No, when they're a tenant, no. But what about just fabulous homes?
There was
the not fabulous. You got to take the good and the bad.
You do, and it's when I first started out. Let's put it this way. When I was in high school, I wanted to become an architect. And so and I think everybody goes through that phase where they want to become an architect or an interior designer at some point. And so I went through that as well. And, my career changed quite a few times. Like I was, doing managing restaurants for a while, and then did sales and marketing for a real estate developer, then became a marketing director to sell real estate. And after that, I had the photographer that I hired at that time. Him and I became really good friends. And then after the 2008-9 recession happened, I got out and just started getting into photography. And it was all because of him, because of my buddy that got me into it. He said to me, that I guess it was 2008. He said, "Look, it is there's a launch party for the Canon 7D and the 5D Mark II. Let's go to it together." And we went, and I bought a camera. And then next thing I know, my neighbor says, "Hey, Rob, heard that you bought a new camera. Can you shoot my place?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." I shot her place. Then next thing you know, the realtor looks at the photos and says, "Hey, Rob, these are pretty good. How much do you charge?" And I said, "I have no idea." And we went from there. And 10 years later, it's I've got 7 guys that are out there shooting, and we're doing anything and everything from doing photography to video to 3D Matterports and eye guides. We're doing virtual staging. We're doing video architectural renderings and rendering videos. What else are we doing? We're doing graphic design for things, and pretty much anything that you throw at us, we're going to say that we do it, because what do we vote? Ron, I don't know if you're like this. I've always been the guy that if a client comes up to me and says, "Hey, Rob, can you do this?" I'm like, can I conceptually understand this? Yes, I can do that. And then you go home and you Google, it's like, how the hell do I do this? And you figure it out.
Wasn't there a Friends episode there's an automatic answer sometimes? Does this make me look fat? No. Like it's just it's a automatic reaction. Can you also shoot blank? Yes. And then and just to roll it into another Friends reference, is Joey always said, you put on your resume, or if they ask you to do something in acting, can you do the splits or ride a horse? And you just say yes, and you figure it out later. So I didn't go that automatic, but much the same way. I got into 360s early on for the kind of the cool factor and all that, and then that naturally got me into real estate. So that just really happened automatically that way. And it was funny because I was much better at the 360s than just a regular shot for a while, because I didn't really have. There's so much more to it, which has something to do with why we have photography Q&A, because there's so much more to it than most people would realize, and that's true for probably any kind of photography. I'll give you one example of what there's more to it. Is I'm pulling up an example right now in the background, and with all these things going on, man, the computers work so hard, and it's taking a long time to things that don't normally. So it's loading up something in the background there. Let's hit a couple more questions. But in photography, that's going to happen. So quick advice, be ready to, if your client wants you to also take portraits, what I did at first, I said, well, it's not really what I do. And I turned down business a couple times and I had to change that real fast, right?
Yep.
So I needed to figure out how to do at least their basic portraits. You know who uses headshots on their business cards for some crazy reason everyone does in the real estate business, right? So
Yeah.
you get those clients start doing their portraits, at least headshots.
Oh yeah.
Again, much harder than it seems once you get into it. And then if you can turn it into environmental portraits and all that, that's cool too.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Well, I've oh yeah,
Yeah, it's funny. I had a client that came up to me and she said, God, I was shooting for her for around 4 years, and then finally she comes up to me and she goes, okay, so I've got another job for you this Sunday." I said, "All right, great,
I just happen to be
perfect."
available.
It's like, "What time?" And he goes, "Well, I need you to be at my place at 7 a.m. and then the reception is at 2, and dinner is at 6." And I said, "Whoa, whoa, 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 what am I shooting?" And she goes, "My wedding."
Yeah, and for the same amount that you shot the house for, right?
Not quite, but
But that
uh,
can be the expectation a lot of times.
it can be, and it kind of threw me off guard because I was like, "Well, I don't know if I'm going to be shooting a wedding," but it just happened to be that no, she informed me later on that she actually had a wedding photographer, but he wanted to charge an extra $2,000 or something like that for a second shooter. And I said, "Well, you've been a great client of mine. It's great. Come on, I'll invite me to your wedding. I'll bring my camera and I'll just shoot some stuff, and that'll be my wedding gift to you because you've been a great client for now, and you've introduced me to." I think at the time she literally introduced me to like 20 clients. So, I owed her one. So
And
did
that's
that.
a whole other can of worms is wedding photography. That's one
I Yeah.
my in fact, oh, this happened to me. Hey, hey Pepper, I got some news. We're getting married. I'm like, oh, right on, dude. Can you shoot our wedding? No. It was right away. No,
Yeah.
you don't want that. That would be bad for us. It would be bad for a friendship. It'd be bad for the
Yeah.
results because I've never really done it. Let's. I didn't know you
I'm,
could use Audrey. I didn't know you could use Photomax for 360. That's awesome. You made my day. Can you run through and edit? Do I know you, Audrey? Because again, right in my wheelhouse. So what I was behind the scenes, I grabbed a few brackets. I'll tell you what, let's do this. Just gonna share the whole screen. I guess it's gonna be a little weird for a second.
yeah. Perfect.
Here's what bracketed panoramas can look like when you bracket a lot, which I did. So, so like for instance, these last 2, 4, 6, 7 of them is outside, which is over bracketing, by the way. Someone's going to ask. I didn't really need to take 7 shots, but I just had my camera set up and I just overshot rather than readjusting everything, and I knew I was going to capture what I needed. So I stitched the panoramas first. You can see this, right? A bunch of bracketed
Yeah.
360s. Yeah. I stitched. My workflow is to convert my raw to nice TIFFs,
Hmm.
and I'll give you. I'll give a real super nerdy insider tip on this lobby right here. So this is
So interesting. You do the stitch first, and then you run the HDR.
yeah.
Huh. I kept on doing it the other way around.
So this is one of the brackets. The dynamic range isn't huge here, but
Yeah.
it's pretty big, and there's a lot of details, especially in the lights up above and everything. So just when I convert the raw to TIFF, and some of the reasons are to apply a little noise reduction, remove chromatic aberrations, which can be huge and was huge in this particular one. So here's a real super insider nerdy tip. I couldn't get this crazy floor to stitch. They had that pattern on there, and there were a lot of those little those. Am I on screen right now?
Mhm.
Those little the lines would shift a little bit, and they're not easy fixes in post. Really, they're kind of a pain, especially if they're curved and adjust. So I looked really closely, and I'm like, there was still pretty significant chromatic aberration, which is the little bands. There were green and red bands going along those white parts, hitting the dark parts, and chromatic aberration is weird enough that from one, whoops, when you do this camera rotating for 360s, the light is coming in differently. So different chromatic aberration means different details in the image, and the stitcher couldn't handle it, and it got all weird. So I went back and I redid my raw to TIFF conversion, because I had just applied my preset that I always do, and it just wasn't enough in that case, and there was still a significant amount left. So I actually took time to go back and rerun that conversion, and then it stitched up beautifully afterward. So I just thought that there's your real insider tip, because I always preach doing really solid raw conversions is so important in the workflow that people don't really realize. They don't really grab control of that and do it really deliberately, and that's a really good reason why. So I just took some of these brackets and I dragged them over to save time, kind of cooking show style, and now we're in that's what it looks like when you open it up in Photomatics. So I just grabbed excuse me, I just grabbed those brackets, and now I can use, just like any other time, I can use like my presets to start out and see where I want to go. So if this was a new thing for me and I didn't know what kind of presets I wanted to use, I could go in here and look at which I chose the realistic filter up top. Excuse me. Long day yesterday. I used the realistic filter, and then I can kind of see where I'm going, about what kind of look I want to go with. I always know that I'm pretty much in this this interior type or fusion natural kind of area. So natural is good here. So I'm just looking for a very fused natural, just not recover every single little detail. I still want to keep contrast in my image and all, but I just do it to bring the dynamic range down. So you can go a lot of different directions with this one, and you can go like half to see, which one, if you want, how bright the originals are and things like that. Okay, nice. So let's see.
I didn't know you had the comparison chart there.
Yeah,
or a comparison.
That's kind of one of my Photomatics tips these days. Is it's almost always things that people don't realize are there. Like one guy was saying, like, oh, this other one has a lens profile support, like, because that's important for real estate, when make sure that the lens doesn't have any distortion and vignetting and stuff like that. And like, because they didn't see it, and I'm like, okay, well, no, it's there, but it's just maybe it's not where that particular person was looking. So that's how I do my panoramas. That I do that stitch then HDR workflow, and then in that case, this might be tough on the screen share, but on the left below the sliders, the HDR sliders, there's a checkbox that says 360 degree panorama. So you just check that, and that evens out the right and left the edges, so that when you view it interactively, then there won't be any line there.
Oh, good. Now, see, going back to what you were saying about the lens profiles, that's an interesting one, because I remember one of my guys selected that on one of his presets, and we do the same thing. We do the raw to TIFF conversion first, and then we put it through Photomatics. And when we do the raw to TIFF conversion, we also do the lens distortion correction in Adobe Camera Raw.
Yeah.
What he did was he kept that turned on Photomatics, and what it did was it did another lens correction. So now we're bowing out the other way, and it was,
that can be a problem.
That was sure. Yeah. We couldn't figure out why his lines weren't straight at all for the longest time. Longest time for me is a week. If I can't figure out a problem by the end of a week, it's the end of the world for me. But yeah, we couldn't figure it out, and then finally we just went through his entire workflow and said, see, you got one button click right here, and that was it.
And
it's
if you are to Juan Jose, I see you coming in. Hang on a minute, man. I'll get you on in just a second. I was going to say, you also get if you work on something first and you bring back in a TIFF or a JPEG, then the profiles are not available for as many lenses. Just do that at the raw conversion step only. That's the way to go. It's really a cool thing.
Yeah.
Let me turn off this here, and I just wanted to. Juan Jose Perez.
Hello.
It's Ganchos himself. Good to see you, buddy. How's it going?
What's up, guys?
Juan
Hey.
Jose is also a 360 photographer, and
Sorry
that's
for
where
being
we met.
late.
Let me. So the results would be. Oops, I was trying to drag the panorama around on the screen share, not on my computer. Okay, so the let's see, what I wanted to show is. So anyway, where was the edges were in this painting, right?
Yeah.
So
No, it looks good.
So you don't see you don't see any line there or anything.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit dark on this screen, but maybe that's why. That's just that. So yeah, this was there's a.
Yeah, those patterns.
Those patterns were tough, and there was those green and bands going on there. Like finally, it was driving me crazy last night trying to figure out what was going on with that one.
Yeah.
And don't get me started on this one. My gosh, what a crazy interior with 27 different kinds of light sources coming in, and oh my gosh, it's just too much. Okay.
Yeah.
I was looking at that for hours yesterday, is why. So it was right on my brain.
Oh, perfect.
Oh man, comments coming in. What's up, 180? What do you got stuff on your mind already? Or?
No, I just wanna share your conversation
Awesome.
and to give you some reviews about some aspects that I think is necessary for 360 panoramas, at least in my experience.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, good. Whereabouts are you shooting out of?
What?
Where do you shoot from, or where are you located?
I'm located in Ecuador, South America.
Okay.
We
Great.
met the other 2 weeks ago. Remember?
Yeah, no, I do remember.
It looks like
yeah,
you.
I just couldn't remember where we were.
You cleaned up.
Yeah, I'm in Quito, in the capital.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
In Ecuador.
Nice.
So there's something that I think is important to show. I don't know if you know about this book.
Yeah, I have that around here somewhere.
Yeah, sure.
That's Christian
Block.
Block.
I think his last name it's Block or Blotch, I don't know. But you should take a look at about this one, because it gives you tons of information about how to process 360 panoramas and HDR in general.
It's funny
Wow.
because that book is titled HDRI, but it's really a panoramic book.
That's right.
Yeah, man. He came to a couple. One. I don't know if he was at Juan Jose and I go to sometimes those panoramic photographer conferences, and he was at least a couple of them. Berkeley, I think.
No, I've been in Tucson, New York.
In New York, right? Yeah.
Portugal and Japan.
Oh man, I miss Portugal. Yeah. The panoramic group goes to the cool places, let me tell you.
Oh yeah.
I'm just Mitch L, cute.
Nice.
Real estate photographer. As real estate photographers doing HDR, do you work with ambient light most of the time and bracket your images, or do you incorporate external flashes? Yes.
So yes, we do both. So for example, like for us, we always look at photography like cooking. You have to get all your ingredients before you can actually make a dish, and your ingredients will change based on what is available. So if you go into a place and say you got a place that is super dark, and you got one small window that's super bright. Yes, you'll do HDR, but one thing you'll find is that when you start doing HDR with that, it's almost too much of a dynamic range. And so you'll want to have a flash of some sort to just try and clean up more of the transition areas, like where it goes, like the windowsills, where it goes from bright to dark right away. Like you'll want to have something that you can then pull in later just to clean things up. And as well, if you have a couple of great flash layers, then you can always use that to help color correct everything that you've got.
Yeah, that's people are doing Michelle. People are doing their own custom versions for what they find works, and a lot of it comes from what you're experienced with. Like if you have experience with light, like I came in the other way. I learned about light later, so I go for more. I just try to bracket. But lights, for a long time, I know a lot of people, just coming from that standpoint of helping people using photomatics, a lot of people add in one flash shot to their brackets, and they just combine it as if they're regular brackets, and they like that result. So that's one way. I know.
Ambient.
Well, that's different. I think Flambience, that's different because I think they really, again, that word deliberately, they create an ambient exposure which could be bracketed by itself. Sometimes they'll just take one shot and that's their ambient, but a lot of times I see these guys, they fuse them or use HDR, and then they go and deliberately add light where they want to. That's more the flambience, right?
Talking about flambience, the one thing that I haven't tried yet is doing 360 panoramas with a flambient technique. That should be interesting. I haven't done that yet.
That's
I will do it.
I was gonna take it that direction when because the reason I got started in about 2003 with bracketing was lighting a panorama I thought it was impossible. I know it's not impossible, but lighting a 360 where everything is in the scene. Now you could set up lights, shoot one direction, rotate your camera, move the lights around, shoot.
Yeah, but that's definitely gonna change all the shadows, and then
exactly.
you're gonna have a lot of stitching problems.
Exactly.
I have tried 360 panoramas with flashes, but putting the tripod right next to the camera and behind me on the camera, so I just rotate the light itself, or I could just keep the light in the same direction and then shoot all the 360 panorama. The final result is kind of weird, but you can actually do it.
I have one that just because I have my computer set up because I was processing. I think I have access to this one photo. Yeah, cool. Hold on a second. Where I actually did light it for obvious reasons. The reasons being that it was full of intentionally organized models. So slow. Okay, screen. Here we go. No, that's not what I want to show anymore. Bear with me, y'all. Bear with me.
No worries. I'm doing the same thing. I'm going through some of the sample images I've got. There's a certain image that I want to show because it is a combination of flash and HDR, and we had to use a flash because we couldn't. There's no way to get light into the area that we needed.
Yeah. So here, did you see my screen now? Let me close a couple things. Do you have my screen on there now? It's just yeah.
Okay,
So we did a photo. I was asked to do a 360 of this cafe, and the idea, this is just the 360 by itself, and what they did was they took they made it interactive where there was little pop-ups pointing out online safety problems. So you'd pop up like you notice this guy here is looks like he's taking a selfie, but he's actually getting the sign-on's information of the guy's screen behind him. So it was a planned out image that got added interactivity on top of it, which is one of the uses for 360s is a lot of times it goes into other bigger projects that you don't really end up ever seeing as just photography.
Nice.
So I needed to get light on all these people because they had a lot of bright light coming in that window. So that solution ended up being basically where, like what you were saying, Juan Jose, I think was I had a couple of flashes that were behind me. I had kind of people helping me hold them a little bit and kind of rotating around, and so I had like a regular camera flash, bouncing that into a reflector and trying to cover as much as I could. So it was a big deal to try to make it all happen in a 360. But there's one time where you might use lights, but reason you don't really have to use lights in real estate is there's rarely any models in there, right? Everything is stationary, and so a lot of times you don't need it. Let you continue with reasons you could use it.
And if you're doing, let's say, a 360 fashion shot, right? There's this guy from London called Will Person. I don't know if you have heard about him. Well, this guy is
kind of online virtually.
Yeah, and he's an expert doing fashion shots in 360s. So basically, what he does is instead of lighting all the area around you when you're taking 360s, he takes like a small flashes, and he aims to the specific spots, right? Like when you're doing pops for real estate, but for fashion, and with, of course, lighting the people in a fashionable way, if you like. So the result is amazing because he takes 360 doing HDR for taking all the ambient light, but at the same time he makes some patches of light in specific spots in people for highlight the the clothes or the makeup or whatever you want. So can actually even do some backlighting for that kind of fashion result, and then he just erased that. So he takes more pictures instead of taking, let's say, with a 12mm lens. Instead of taking 4 pictures around in a full frame camera, he takes more, so he has more overlap area, so he can be kind of close to the person to do the proper lighting, and then he just erase and mask him.
Right.
So at the end is a very fashionable 360 panorama, which is cool.
I'm gonna have to check that out. I haven't been in communication with him for a long time, but I'd like to see some of that. We have. How often do you take photos on your iPhone?
Every day.
Every day, yeah. In fact, hey, you know something I used the iPhone for a few years ago? I was in one of those situations, kind of like I popped up that panorama that had all the different kind of light sources going on, and I think I had a new iPhone. I think it was a 5 at the time, and I was noticing how good it was with color. So I just took a shot in that same place that I was having trouble getting the color to work, and it did amazing job at getting the color right. I kind of used that. I making fun of myself on purpose, like I do. I was using that as to make sure I got the color work right later on when I was processing the 360 later. So I don't know how
I do that too.
It does some. It far exceeds what it should be able to do with a little sensor and the plastic lens. So I don't know what kind of special sauce they do, but it's cool.
It's ridiculous, and the fact that it does. I was talking to somebody else about this. It actually does white balance differently. Like when you think about white balance and for a photo, it's global. It's one white balance all across the image. Whereas with Apple, they actually change it so that the white balance of your foreground may be different white balance than your background. And they do it based on the photometry of distance and luminescence. And like, can you imagine if you have like your highlights are at one color temperature and your shadows are another color temperature, just so that when you look at the photo.
I can't imagine that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it works.
That's got to be what they're doing. And would that fall into the group of computational photography? That's what they're doing with the phones and other cameras have multiple lenses.
The CGI. Oh, okay.
Well, not
No.
exactly. It's more like they're taking information from more than one lens and putting it together. That's what happens when you take. Probably everybody watching
A
here knows
stereo.
this. Everybody probably knows this watching here. But if you take the portrait mode, it's using information from two lenses and using the blurry part from the background and the close-up part for the subject, and that's computational photography. And I know that's going. There was one camera that I don't know if it ever went into production, but it had like 20 lenses on it for all kinds of different purposes.
Oh yeah,
I
I
don't
remember
know if it
that.
ever. I don't know if it ever made it, but that's kind of the future. And I didn't. I should have known. I mean, they're figuring out a way to handle different white balances in one shot clearly, and
Yeah.
so that makes a lot of sense.
The computational stuff is amazing. Oh, so I found the image that I was looking for. Let me just share that quickly.
Hey, while you're setting up, what's your first wish feature for a future camera would take your real estate and HDR photo to a whole new level? We were just talking about one of them. If I can put on auto white balance and then it can get all the different all the different colors of lighting, that would be a great one, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
The same thing with focus, when you can actually change what you want in focus and where not. And
Yeah.
you can just.
Yeah.
What is the name of that camera that you can shift?
That's
You have captured everything, and you just can shift what you want in focus.
Litro, isn't it?
Light.
Yeah, Lightroom.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Light.
Those one the drawback on that one is that there's so much. I think the one that was out a couple of years ago had so much more information in there that any resulting one that you choose is going to be there was no resolution there. Like you had to. It was only for like social media or something. You weren't going to be able to use it for much more than that at that time. But I mean, really cool thing, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to show this image here. So you see, it is HDR. We did, and then if you look at the inside of the teepee there, that teepee has a black tarp around it. So when you do it with just HDR, it's completely black in there, and you can't get it to look bright and inviting for a child. So what we did was we set up a couple of, we set up one flash in there. Just to get that ambient, and then what we did was we did the HDR, took the flash layer, put it on top, masked that part in, and blended it so that it looked nice and inviting.
Cool.
Yeah.
You could probably pop the flash in each bracket if you wanted to be fast about it, and it would probably have the same effect, I imagine. I mean,
You would.
A lot of ways to do it. And
Yeah.
by the way, there are so many. The prices are coming down so fast on these off-camera flashes, right?
Oh yeah, like we used to use all Canon flashes, and Canon flashes with the Pocket Wizard triggers. And the problem with that was that
Expensive version.
well, yeah, like they're like in Canada, the 600 EX2s are what, $660, and then you put the Pocket Wizards on them, and you got a receiver and a transceiver. You make the entire set, and it's $1,000 for one flash, and they just got ridiculously expensive. So we then switched over to the Godox system, and
Yeah.
yeah,
That brand is
it's
amazing right now. Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
$200
I
a flash.
Yeah, I got a bunch of that stuff
Yeah.
too. Yeah. And I mean, now you can, and they're so versatile. You know, like keep those AD 200s, which are just a bit.
Yeah.
I had one just.
And they have a bunch of accessories too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like the V, what are they called? The regular speedlight versions, the V8 6.0s.
Yeah.
The
It
V860s.
looks like a regular speed light, except they're round, right?
Yeah. So those, well, they're $200, and whenever we had a problem with Canadian, whenever we had a problem with the Canon ones, like we're part of the CPS system, the Canon Professional Services, we'd send it back to Canon to get it fixed, and the cost to get a Canon flash fixed was $130. So for $130 to fix
CPS?
it. Yeah, that's with CPS. And we still had to pay, what, $300 a year for CPS? So we got to the point where we said, well, screw it. Let's just get rid of CPS. Let's get rid of the Canon flashes. Go with Godox. And if one breaks, fine. We'll just buy a new one.
That's what I was thinking. One reason, and I do like to make fun of the dollarettes, but I meant it that time because you said $200. I thought that sounded expensive because I think the AD 200s, which are much more powerful than a speed light, but they're only a little bit bigger, and those are about 200 when you can get them on sale. Not much more than 200, low
200
200s,
something, yeah.
low
The
200s in the
200,
US.
the
Yeah.
200
Yeah.
Pros, because
Yeah.
there's the regular version and the Pro version.
Yeah, I made a mistake. I have a few of each. So, God darn it, because then
Yeah.
there's and the differences are minor, but anyway, that's a different thing. They're so versatile. They're so easy to keep one in the car, one in the bag. Probably not in the bag necessarily because it's different enough. So if you have them on hand, so I usually have them on hand to solve problems. Like if I want to throw a little light on. We're talking about panoramas, not with people, but if I want to throw a little extra light over here to highlight something, or if I want to do something, I have those there, and it makes the versatility is amazing. The batteries last a long time as long as you take care of them right. I mean, really cool, and that's reason I'm kind of making a big deal out of it is that with everybody asking about should I add lights, should I go with lighting, should I go with HDR, should I do a combination? That's what a lot of people talk about in real estate photography now. And I used to say, well, lighting is not only, you've got to learn a lot in practice. You really got to practice that. But they're expensive. Yeah. And now they're just not so expensive. Because if you have two of those 8200s or two of the speedlight size ones, you can do so much with those. And the accessories they come with are pretty cool too. So
yeah.
Oh yeah.
And
definitely.
One reason they're a little less expensive maybe is that my understanding, I haven't had anything break yet, but I guess there is really no support, right? So you pretty much just end up buying another one if it goes
probably
bad. So I think that's why that's figured into the price. That a few people have mentioned that when something does go wrong, you're not going to get any help. You're not going to get it fixed. So you just get a new one. So figure that in. Okay.
Exactly. Now I got another shot here that I've done with HDR and with a flash. So you see, we got the models there. So you take the HDR first. And then essentially with this shot, what I did was I had the models there, and right where that blue chair is, there was a big octabox that was just shining down onto my models. And so first get the HDR, then get the models and mask in the models, and then do all the other things to make it look like it's real.
So you took
cool.
the HDR without them in there, and then masked them in.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and the weird thing about this shot here is that it looks like a night shot. This was actually shot at 10 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
Cool. And
you can turn day into night with flashes by.
Oh, like crazy! Yeah, like it's. So this is the other one that we did at the same time, and you can tell, you've got the flash right in the background there, behind their heads, just to illuminate them a bit. Mm-hmm. But again, this was shot during the day at around 10 o'clock in the morning. So those windows were actually quite bright. What we did was we took a flash on the inside and then blew out the inside, made the windows all dark, then pulled that layer in, and then used a multiply layer on it, darkened all the windows. And now we were able to make it look like it was all shot at night.
How often do you do real estate with any kind of people, any kind of models in it?
I would say, on average, once a quarter.
Yeah, rarely, right?
Yeah.
And do they ask you for it, or is that something that comes up? Like you have an idea for that, or is that something they're asking for because they have some specific plan in mind for it?
It's usually when they come up to me and they say, "Hey, we want to do something different with this new project that we're doing." And it's like, "Well, have you thought about people?" And they're like,
right.
"You can shoot with people?" It's like, "Yes, we can shoot with people."
That's usually one of the first questions I ask if I'm doing not your standard for real estate, but just a space that maybe whether it's public or something, is my first question is, are we involving people? Because it makes the thing completely different from all sorts of technical and timing and legal and all kinds of reasons. So it's like one of my first things I always ask.
Yeah. The interesting one that I get is, hey, we're doing this, and it's actually just this one client. He's he's a renovator, but he builds like some super, super nice places. And every place that he builds, for some odd reason, there's a dog wash or something for a dog. And so every time I go shoot, it's like, okay, so for this one, here's a dog. Like, you know how hard it is to get a dog to sit nicely in a dog shower so that you can get a shot of it? It's
Well,
impossible.
the right dog you might not be able to get him out of there. Right?
Yeah. So,
You got Joshua
Yellowknife.
Yellowknife. You know what? Is that near Medicine Hat?
No, that is way up in the north.
I just love the name. I just love the name Medicine Hat. Thinking about Joshua from Yellowknife, thinking about venturing into incorporating lighting into my shoots. See, everyone's talking about it.
Okay.
Mainly for larger homes where I need light in rooms further away. In your opinion, flashes or constant lighting? Well, if I am, go ahead.
I will say, if you're just doing photos, get the Godox ones, the cheap ones, and throw those into those rooms back there. You can't go wrong. Like you'll, geez, what's the longest that we've done? Like we can do this where we're shooting an exterior of a house, and we put a flash into every room of the house where the windows are facing forward, and then we go outside
like a dusk time, right?
No, this is dusk, but we can also do this just later in the afternoon too. So if you just want to be able to see inside the house, still make it a daytime shot, but see inside the house, then we bring those in. And so even from across the street, we can trigger those flashes through glass and through doors and stuff. So yeah, get the Godox ones. They're very good. And
I pictured when he asked that, I pictured just a big a house that has a lot of space and there's rooms, say, off in the distance a bit. And to me, and again, I mean, this is what I always, my thing is more the HDR, but that seems to me what it's perfect for, because the light in that room is the light. So as long as there is some light in there, you can capture with brackets.
Oh yeah.
That's one of the big reasons for it, because you don't need the time of doing all the setup. And with some experience, I know lighting doesn't take forever, but it would take me longer. So the setup and the equipment and everything. So if you bracket, as long as you capture the full brackets, whatever light is in there is captured.
Yeah,
so
that'd be fine. And it also depends on who your clientele is. Like
sure.
if your client's actually going to pay for you and pay for the time for you to set up lights, great. But if you're shooting for realtors, you're probably not.
Yeah.
So with us, what we do is like we carry around lights for whatever we need. For typical realtors, I think maybe we carry around one or two. But if we're doing HDR, then we could literally just walk around and go click, 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 and then just keep on going. But for a builder shoot, we'll set up the camera, we'll look around, take it, see if there's enough brackets. How do we add some accents to it? Then we'll start adding lights on top of that.
That's the thing is, to me, lighting is in order to be in control. So you can, just because there's light in a space, you can capture it, but does that give it the oomph and the life and the pop that you want? Or can you do something interesting with the light, like direct it? So if you have a reason that you want to direct the light, then you would want to do that. But if you're just trying to capture the thing, then so I've been trying to say it depends less, because everything depends, but that's another one of them. So many, that's the cool thing about photography, right? Is you can do all these different things.
There's so many ways of doing everything.
Yeah.
One of the things that I would like to have as a function with these Godox flashes or any other brand, I don't know if you guys know this, but actually I don't know if that's possible, but probably it's possible, but manually instead of doing it in an automatically way. For example, one of the reasons that you pop flashes when you're taking photos is because you want to get rid of color cast, and you want to have the right color balance, right? And then of course you can also do with the flashes some improvements in the general lighting of the place. But that will be interesting if you can actually do some brackets, but at the same time, in each bracket, take a flash, but with different power. So corresponding to a specific shutter speed, the power will change automatically. And so you take a set of brackets, but in each bracket, you fire one pop of flash, but with different intensities. I don't know if I'm explaining myself correctly.
Yeah.
So at the end, you will have HDR, but the color correct in it. The color correction
you can do,
in it.
well, you can do, I know with the Canons, you can do flash exposure bracketing. And so the power of the flash will still go through ETTL, but you can bracket it so that it's two stops under or two stops over, and do an ETTL.
And how's the result?
You know what? So the big issue with that is
shadows.
The way that I look at it, I don't see the point of it, because if you're doing flash anyway, what you're doing is you're already compressing the dynamic range already, because you're lighting the shadows and bringing it up to an even amount of light throughout. So I find it's a little redundant, because if I'm doing flash, I should just be able to do it in one shot with one flash and make the entire place perfect.
Well, then you're talking about needing that you have two levels of light in that case. You set the camera for one and the flash for the other. But if there are more than that, then you can control it with more flashes.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is that it is redundant, because if you have one flash, you're gonna know exactly how it's gonna be the color cast. I mean, how it's not affecting the color cast. So you don't have to shoot flashes in every single exposure. So just in one, you will know how does it work, right? Is that
for the color? Yeah.
Yeah, for the color, yeah. But if you're just going for color, you can just bounce it off the ceiling, and then you've got a shot where it shows you all the color. But there's no dynamicism within dynamicism.
Might be a word.
Yeah, right.
I'm learning new English words.
Yeah, it's a pretty flat image is what it comes out to be if you just do that. And so I like to use flash to add more of a scene, to add more drama to it, to add the shadows, to make things more interesting. And so if I'm using the flash, I'd like to be able to bring in the additional shadows that it brings in, or use it to do things like flatten out carpets, or flatten out the glare on stainless steel appliances. Right.
Another thing that could be interesting, then, if you take a picture of a living room, let's say, and you're using an f11 for getting maximum depth of field without diffraction, not going to 22 or something, I don't know if you have tried this, but the focus stacking with a wide angle lens is amazing. Seems like everything's in focus, and actually could be everything in focus, but it's not pin sharp focus. So if you do focus stacking in real estate photography, or in architectural photography, could be super interesting, because the final result is pin sharp. I mean, when you're taking a picture with a wider lens, and when you're using a kind of middle range f-stop, you will get everything in focus, but not necessarily everything is pin sharp. Yeah. But with focus stack, everything is pin sharp. So that's another technique that I want to try, just to see how the final, because I have done that with advertising photography in products, in food, when they want to cut and to place it in another place, you cannot have the contours out of focus. That's why you need in advertising photography sometimes focus stacking. But what about the same technique in real estate photography or in architectural photography? The final result would be super interesting.
What is it? What's more? What do you mean by being pin sharp compared to in focus?
I mean that when you take the picture with a let's say 11 or 8, and you're using a wide angle lens, the depth of field gonna be big, right? And you're gonna get everything in focus. but not necessarily everything is pin sharp.
Mm-hmm.
So if you change the focus ring and you change the the distance of the focus ring, let's say at the beginning of the room, at the middle, and at the end, you will get the best of everything, and you will
Oh, you're
put
saying
together
that.
in the focus
Okay.
stack.
You're
You
saying
know
that
what I'm trying to say?
you're saying that
Yeah.
sharpness improves at
The
different
sharpening
focus
improves a
levels.
lot.
At the
And
infinity
it
level, it's not as sharp.
seems like it probably is not necessary, but if I have seen some architectural photos with that technique. I haven't tried it myself, and it's amazing the level of detail that you get compared with just one shot.
Do you
Really?
think it would be like a medium format sharpness, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that could be a good comparison.
You know, it's interesting because, yeah, no, I think of some of my lenses, and there was a time where I tested all my lenses. And for example, like my 70 to 200, it is the sharpest at shoot, what was it, at at 5.6,
The sweet spot.
and yeah,
Really?
that is the sharpest f-stop. So yeah, if I wanted to shoot something that's fully in focus, instead of shooting at say f13 or f16, yeah, doing it at f6 and then focus stacking, that would make it produce the best shot for sure. So I want to bring up this image because somebody asked, what's the image that you're most proud of? And I don't know if I've got one that most proud of, but this is the one that I did semi recently. I did this last summer.
I'd be proud of it.
And I thought, yeah, you know, I was proud of this one because what you don't notice in this shot is that right where the people are in that little street there, that was a construction zone. So we had to clean up all the construction. There were orange pylons everywhere. There was some scaffolding that was there. And so we got rid of all of that. And then just to make it look more of a lively kind of place, essentially just stood there, and you know, you do the HDR first, and then you set your camera at like for example, I set my shutter speed at I think it was 1/5 of a second whenever I was shooting some people that were closer, and then slowed down my shutter speed to around 1/10 of a second, 1/20th of a second, depending on where they were in the scene. So if they were closer to the building, then I could drop it down to around 1/20th of a second and still get that motion blur. So the motion blur of the person in the front is about the same as the motion blur as people that are right by the building. And so you get all those people motion blurred, and then you individually mask those people in to make it look like it's a busy street.
Super
And
interesting. Yeah.
yeah, the people that look really closely at this image will notice that some of the people are the same, or some of the blurry people look the same. And that's because they are the same person. Because I didn't have a lot of people walking around that time.
I would say that almost any professional, deliverable, epic images we see out there these days, it seems like they're all masked somehow, taking multiple shots in one way or another, and taking parts out. For like, I just saw a demo on somebody on YouTube talking about a cool motorcycle rider shot that he got. I forgot who it is, and the lighting was right up next to the rider, but they just took multiple shots and then they just masked out the lighting equipment. And so they were able to, the point was that they were able to use everyday normal person lighting equipment that wasn't so powerful, and they were able to do it with that. That was kind of the point of the video. So yeah, it seems like they're all, it's a big trend, big trend. Maybe it's not new, maybe it's just me.
Well, yeah, like
Rob,
all these images yeah?
No, I was about to ask you, how often do you take pictures with polarizing filters?
I don't.
Never?
No.
I was going to ask the same.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned the glare, and
yeah, there's a certain there was a time in my life that I did use a polarizing lens, and it's just to get rid of the glare off the ground. And then I found that if you pop a flash, you don't need it. And the other thing was that
two different ways of handling it again.
Yeah, and what I found was that if I had my polarizer on there, then that was just two more surfaces that I had to wipe down before I did my shoot again. And not only that, what I found was that with light, we got flare. So, you got light coming in, it bounces off the lens and then bounces up against the back of the polarizing filter and then back in. So we got this really weird flare sometimes, and we never noticed it until we get into post. And so,
Rob, while we're on the subject, tell us how does popping a flash solve the glare off of like a appliance, for instance?
Oh, you just overpower it. So, for example, if the reason that there's glare is because you've got one light source, which is obviously the sun. The sun's coming in from there. The light's coming down. It bounces off, and it's over here. Well, if we decrease the power of that sun in comparison to everything else, then it's pretty much gone.
You're lighting the room with the light and overpowering the sun more or less.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Joshua agrees. I have real quick, just because I wouldn't want to pretend I'm ignoring you. I think lighting looks so much better than HDR. I would say, guess what? Depends.
Again, I agree.
First of all, I started out. What I look for is a replacement for lights. I don't want someone to say that's HDR. I don't want them to think about how it got taken. Of course, only other real estate photographers are going to right away ask if it's lighting or HDR. That's only us.
Yeah.
But I want it to look like it's a great image, or a good image, depending what kind of the job we're doing. But the point is that it's another option, and it shouldn't look better or worse, and maybe not even be obvious. And
that's exactly it. Like when I shot this one, this is my entire goal is to make it look like it is, but maybe just a little sexier. And to do that, like for this one here, this is predominantly HDR. But when I did this with just HDR, it didn't have the depth that I needed. So what I did was with this one, I then had a small umbrella with lights on it, and I put it up right about the edge of the counter there and shot it across from left to right. And that's where you can see the shadows that come off of the chairs there, and you get that definition in the chairs that gives a little bit more depth.
I love that. I love that a lot. There's one of the downsides to using lighting is that you're really managing shadows from the lights. Mm-hmm. But on the good side of that, you can create the shadows you want using the lights. So that's one of those, who mentioned that? Their name is Video Beauty. I didn't notice the name when I popped it up. But that's the point is you have tools. You have a problem to solve, which is a huge dynamic range. And it's great. Bracketing is a great way to do that. So is using lighting. And guess what? Like Rob just did here, he used both and got even better results. So this is kind of my whole point in.
And one thing that is interesting about your final result is something that a lot of people don't tend to do, is that they want, and actually I like the way that you do, Rob, is when you overexpose a little bit the windows instead of pulling all the information of outside, which is fake. So that's interesting because you never know exactly how much overexpose you really need. I mean, you can judge that depending of what is the scene that you're capturing and how's the way that what is out there and what is the way that you want to post-process the image. But that tiny, that is small line, I don't know how to say that thin line between how much overexpose you need to look like not just like a real estate photography, but more like an architectural photography. Editorial photography, is that the word? Editorial?
Interiors, yep.
Interiors. So that's good to know, the amount of overexposed.
I would call that architectural if it were me.
Yeah.
And so for us, what we do is we know that windows are brighter than that. And so because of that, we shoot it so that the windows are around one stop brighter. And we want it to look like that because I don't know about where you guys live, but in Calgary, when you look out the windows, 90% of the time it's not pretty. It's you're looking at the back of somebody else's truck, or you're looking into the next door neighbor's yard, or you're looking into a construction zone, and very rarely.
But you do it by eye? You do it by eye, or you actually use a tool to measure how many EVs or just one or whatever, it's the window overexposed, or you do it each photo independently?
So part of it is how we use photomatics. So for example, what we find is that if we take an HDR shot where, say we take seven shots, and if you do 7 shots and you get the outside perfectly exposed, and then you put that into HDR, you're going to get a shot where the outside looks perfectly exposed, and it's going to be like the outside is the same as the inside. So instead, what we do is we compress it so that our darkest shot doesn't expose the exterior properly, and it's still like one stop brighter. Does that make sense?
Your most darkest picture is not dark enough.
Yeah. We don't give enough information to photomatics to be able to pull all the information from the windows. We make it so that the darkest image is dark enough so that we can see, say, the lights. We make it dark enough so that you can see all the things inside that we need to see, but it's not dark enough that they could pull the entire window.
And if you think this way, maybe the opposite way could be also interesting. Make the most brightest picture not bright enough, so you can actually keep some shadows to keep it more realistic, right?
Yeah.
So because if you see a shadow next to a bed and you see like it's everything super clear, probably it's not gonna be real.
It doesn't feel
so
right.
It's not just bright, but it's also darks.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, and
that's one of one of the trends that I see is that the people will literally cut out the windows, and it'll be darker outside than it is inside. It doesn't make any sense, and I think some agents want that, but I just feel like that's one of those things where let's make a good photo and make it realistic. Now where I'm in sunny California, people want to see outside, and Juan Jose is down there literally, the country's
in the middle of the world,
named after the equator, so it's always going to be perfect weather. But I remember jobs at resorts, they want to show the beach and all that, so you have to do that. But having it darker than it is inside doesn't give the viewer like a comfortable feeling, and I feel like it's not doing that justice, really. Did you have something you want to say? I wanted to hit a question here.
Not, and then so yeah, like Juan, what you were talking about, it's like trying to keep the shadows looking good. Like I just Ron, if you want to pull up my image there, this image that we took, it's dark, but outside is super bright, and the only reason I pulled in the outside was because there was a tree there and it looked green and it looked good.
That adds a cool element to make a cool photo, by the way, and unusual and unusual and unique. And that adds a really important element to that photo.
It does.
I agree.
But if on the outside it was
it's like
nothing there.
It's almost the only color. That's really cool because it
is. It's not monochromatic, but it's with this green thing that calls your attention. So it makes a really nice
get that printed
color combination.
Mm-hmm. So I like doing stuff like that. And sorry, Ron, I saw that other comment come up, and
I don't want to put that one back up for just a second. Joshua, thanks for the questions today, Joshua, by the way, from Medicine Knife. Definitely looking for natural feel, mainly just to fill in shadows, opposed to taking many bracketed images when it comes to rooms with large dynamic range. Yeah, it's just it's going to be what I recommend is trying both. Hey, and let me transition. I just, again, because I have some samples to show, I would like to share the most frequently asked question about HDR, and one that I just kind of know about is when you're going to do it, cover the dynamic range. And I wanted to show you again, just because I had these up. I mean, I went extreme, right?
Yeah.
It's black inside. You can't. It's unusable inside. All the way up to the other end of the spectrum where the exterior is blown out completely. But look at, I mean, the dynamic range in that room is pretty insane. Actually, look at the ceiling,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a cool ceiling. You know, it's one of those spaces that they want to make it cool to work, and so they have a lot of detail. And
So maybe something that you want to show, but not necessarily you need like a super bright ceiling. It's something, information there. You can actually see how the ceiling is, but it's not super bright.
you want it realistic.
Realistic.
Is the thing. I guess
Yes.
I could try to show. Do I still have that?
Because one of the things that I have noticed that a lot of photographers tend to do when they are doing a bunch of photography every day is they don't actually look the light, see the light. They just place the tripod, and because they are doing HDR, they know that they're gonna be covered, and they just set the camera 2 EVs apart or whatever. They take 5 or 7 pictures. They capture the whole dynamic range, but they don't even remember exactly how was the mood of the place, how was the lighting at that place. So when they are doing all the post-processing, they do everything super bright, but they are killing the mood of the place that they took the picture. So a good practice is to try to remember the lighting when you took the picture and how was the place around you in terms of lighting. Not just because you're doing HDR means that you're just covered and then you just solve every exposure problem late in post, but you're trying to have the realistic result.
Exactly.
My most common thing is just cover the dynamic range. So when people are asking, do I take 3? Do I take 5? Do I take 7? It depends. You got to meter. Like I like to say, to meter the highlights, meter the shadows, and capture the whole thing. So the answer is as many as it takes, and that could be. My camera that I was shooting with only takes 1 EV spacing, which is a pain. So I took like 9, where it's a lot of brackets, but whatever. It's a lot of, usually if you're taking spacing by 2, a scene like that would take 5. Oh, so a rule of thumb would be 5 in a scene like that if you do it 2 spacing.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Maybe more, maybe less, but
and sometimes you're in places that you don't even need to take brackets.
Yeah.
If you pay attention to the light and you see the light is not with a huge dynamic range, so probably you can just resolve it with 1 exposure and that's it.
Yeah, no, exactly.
For interiors, is pretty. I would say it's pretty rare for an interior. You know, we're talking about real estate mostly here, right? And,
well, this is a very beautiful picture.
And it's gonna be rare that an interior would be. You could do it with 1 photo unless you light. So you could use light or bracketing, but it's pretty rare just to use 1 photo standard.
Interiors, that's very rare.
Yeah. If you have a lot of light, like depending on your angle in this room that we're showing there, you know, depending with if there's enough light coming in there, you could get away with 1 perhaps, but it might be when you're not facing. That's assuming you're not wanting to show what's outside.
Yeah, honestly, with most of my shots, I've got this so that all the windows are blown out, and part of it is for how I want the viewer to see this. So, for example, without seeing outside, your complete attention is on the interior, everything inside. There's nothing else that you focus on, but your eye goes directly to, say, the furniture there. You wander off a bit to see a little bit of the kitchen, but your eye stays inside. And that's what I like about being able to take all the windows and blowing them all out like this. And the other thing about it is, for example, with this one here, when I originally shot this, outside the window, you saw a red truck, a construction truck out there. And so, I don't know, I don't want to see a red construction truck in this image where everything is blue. So it's, you get rid of it. And, I guess I could have put in a field or some greens out there, but it just didn't feel right. So
now would you ever put lights outside to make it lighter so that you couldn't see what's out there. How about that?
No. I found that I used to do this thing where I tried to take lights and set a light outside and then flash it in. And then what I found was that by the time I put a light outside, came back inside, then the wind would have blown it down, or my assistant would have turned it the wrong way, or I'm yelling through the window. It's like increase it up, or hold it up higher, or make it brighter, or and afterwards I just said, no, screw it, too much work. And so something like this, it's easier to do with this. I was able to shoot on my own without any
For example, in this picture, I don't mind that the windows are blown out, because if you're, I don't know what was your final client here, but if this is for an interior, decoration magazine, it's super cool, because you don't need to look what is happening outside, and you're not focused, as you mentioned before, in what is happening inside, all the blue color palette and how the furniture works in that space. So if it is blown out, the window, for me, is super okay. I mean, it looks more, but for a real estate client, probably this wouldn't be the perfect solution. It depends on what you look outside. As you mentioned, the red truck, it's better to have it this way instead of seeing the red truck, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And a bunch of snow. That could be foggy San Francisco right there.
It could be, right? Yeah. So yeah, and so a lot of my photos, like if I just, if I take this and go straight to the top here, this actually, this one here, this is actually shot. That last shot there was shot in a trailer.
Really?
So this is a show home in Vancouver that I shot, and none of that is real. There's it's a show home that they built in a storage container, essentially. Cool. And
it's
so
that's like taking an interior of a car. The exterior is never real either when you see those.
Yeah.
So,
right?
But the light that is crossing is not real.
In here? No, it's not real. That's
so you
made
it in post.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, and then the exterior, you mask out the windows, and then you put in a view that would work. They told me that this would be the penthouse level, so 4 stories high. So I said, okay, well, you guess you're just overlooking the trees. But again, I could have made those trees look just as dark as the interior, but that wouldn't have looked natural. So I made that 1 stop brighter, and then took out a little and made it a little hazy to bring your attention back inside.
I mean, what it comes down to is the view part of your subject? Is it important? And that's really what it comes down to, right?
Yeah.
Hey, this one's perfect for you. If I recall, you had a great tip. What do you do when your walls look yellowish? I assume they're white in real life, but they're coming out yellowish. Didn't you have? You had a great tip for this. Remember?
Yeah. So what we do is we take it into in Lightroom when you're doing post. Of course, you've got your hue, saturation, luminance. Now it's yellow because there's a light that is orange, that is tungsten light that's hitting it, and it is from that it's coming. So if you think about yellow as being a product of light is to be bright. So when you go to your hue, saturation, and luminance, yes, take that saturation and pull it down just slightly, but go into the luminance side and take your yellows and then increase that luminance and make the yellow become brighter, because it is supposed to be light, and that'll get rid of it.
Yeah, we tried that on one of these times that we were doing this, and I think we had something up live and it worked great. I was like, that's the tip of the month right there.
Yeah, because sometimes the people tend to desaturate the channel of yellow to get rid of it, but he's saying the opposite. He's saying you have to bright it up, the yellow.
Brighten up the yellow.
I think some certain softwares do this. I think PT GUI, for those panoramic photographers out there, I think it does it behind the scenes, because it was managing some lamps really well, I thought. And that might be the secret tip. Maybe I'm giving something away, but it's a really good tip. Let's see. There's somebody with since I can't say your name, I wanted to tell you to shoot us an email, support@hdrsoft.com, and I'll there's a there's
Good
a
tip.
batch plugin for Lightroom, and he says add selection of folder for writing temporary files. That's very technical. Send us a message. I'll ask. But I think it's Lightroom preference. But I'll take a look. Send us an email and let me know how to pronounce your name.
Okay, Ron, can you share my screen? I would like to show some 360 panoramas. I'm talking about one specific aspect that could be interesting for some people.
You need to share it down below. It says share screen, and you have a few choices, and then I just have to pop it on there. Let's see.
Share screen. Sharing the screen or no?
Not yet. You go share screen, and then you choose one of the options, and then there's a share button on the bottom right.
Firefox cannot allow permanent access to your screen.
Good old Firefox.
Yeah, and they recommend Chrome. I've been using this on Chrome.
Okay,
Chrome works pretty well.
Hey, let's it's a good time to end anyway. We've been talking for an hour and a half. I mean, every time we do this, it just goes by so fast, and I realize it's taken quite a while. Let's wrap it up, and I think we're planning on doing real estate oriented ones on Fridays. Juan Jose, let's get me and you and maybe a couple of the 360 guys together, and let's just get together and do a live stream, talk about 360s. I'd love to do that.
Sure.
We can go real nerdy in that. I'll learn a bunch because I haven't been doing it consistently like for so long, and so like when I get do a project and spend extra time going back and trying new things again, it's like I got re-energized with it, and I'd love to be one of the question askers and answerers because I think I catch up with you guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, people, for joining. We've got had some good questions coming up, and look at that. 360 would be great. Karen, you were asking about 360s before, I think. I'm wondering if I know Karen from something 360 oriented or not, maybe the Facebook group or something. But by all means, get involved with that one too. I'll put out a little announcement of some kind that we'll do a live stream. Yeah, thanks, guys. Any parting remarks? Let me do this thing that they do on just about every kind of podcast and stuff. Rob, where can people find you? You can tell I'm just goofing around and having fun being a host for a while.
Yeah, so you can find me at Rob Moroto on Instagram and Facebook, and my website is robmoroto.com. And for our real estate side, it's calgaryphotos.ca. And if you guys have any questions or want to, collaborate on stuff, I'd be happy to work with anybody out there. So,
right on. He has a lot of info in that brain. Juan Jose, you use Orbital Vision, right?
Yes, orbitalvision.com.
Look at that. What about on what do you use for social?
For Instagram and stuff.
Yeah, whatever you want to tell people. Somebody in the chat was mentioning they like the bald head. Maybe you get some followers.
I just cut my hair because actually it was this bald before, but now it's been shorter.
Looks good. Did you notice I got a quarantine haircut?
It
looks good.
I don't look like a mountain man. I don't look like a mountain man anymore.
What about the beard?
Oh, that's just it's pretty normal, isn't it? It's not much longer than I for a while there. I gave up on just all that.
The other day I just cut my hair like with my son. Okay, this is it.
Yeah, there are quite a few stories of guys that have shaved heads now because someone like the wife or girlfriend, mother, or whatever gave them a haircut and messed it up so bad that they just shaved it. And,
well, that was not my case, but yeah.
Yeah, I was lucky. My son's mom's been looking at like how to do this on YouTube and stuff. I'm like, okay, take a shot. I don't really care if you mess it up anyways. There's like an excuse.
Oh my God, I was cutting my son's hair, and you know, you're cutting your kid's hair, and then and okay, whatever you do, if you're cutting somebody else's hair, don't say oops.
Don't go.
It's like, what do you mean oops? Like, no, I didn't say oops.
There's all kinds of jokes you can make about that, or like get something else to make cutting noises and go, "Whoa, oh my God, what just happened?" You know, just whatever.
Oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, exactly. Personally, I've also started, like Rob, I call it the vanity URL. I'm just kind of making a hub of, I do this, I do that, I do the other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Come find me there. I'm at Ron Pepper in most places, Instagram R Pepper. And then I am, like we're here on Photomatics page because I'm heavily involved in the Photomatics team. And, so, come find me and us all in the Facebook group. Let's see where that goes. I think, you know, Photomatics we haven't been a big social media user too much. It's more try to, you know, not focus too much on that in the past. And this time shift has given us mostly me a chance to get more involved and see what we can do. So yeah, see what you like. You can ask questions there any day. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to wait for a live stream necessarily. And yeah, I think we're going to do this again on Friday for a while. So join us again, Real Estate Photography Q&A, and let us know if you have questions ahead of time or during. Okay.
Friday live show. You have doing this like for the last five Fridays, right? Or something like that.
For as long as live Friday. Hey, let's organically develop it, and guys, and let's make it happen. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, us three have been there have been a couple other guys and girls who have been on, but we're sort of the nucleus. So let's build it up and see, you know, see where it goes. I'm having fun with it. Let's keep it going as long as we can. You know, things might change, but you know, let's see.
Yeah.
Oh, here you go. We'll see on the 361, Karen. I've got a.
Yeah, I would like to show in that live nice 360 virtual tour that I have from Vancouver.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah, you know,
when I used to live there. Yeah.
All kinds.
It's a very nice tour.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, we can even start with that and see where it goes. We'll talk offline. We'll put it together. And see when we can do it.
Awesome.
Thanks, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Right. Thanks for joining us.
Have a nice weekend.
Ending broadcast. And boom.